right, here's Alex again from Blacksheep IT Consulting, and we are on our ready-to-go Siebel environment. Remember, that's a Siebel Windows environment 25.12, and it has been installed atop a database that exists in podman containers. Here's the database, and that database is Oracle 23.9, a free version, 23 AI free release. And that is something new for me as well. I've not installed Siebel on this database, but it's a certified database, 23 AI certified for Siebel, and going good so far. So we have bootstrapped the environment, so we are ready to deploy the enterprise, and that is in the SMC, of course. You go to Profiles and you go to Enterprise to create your enterprise profile. Now, there is a sample profile. Feel encouraged to just clone that, click the clone button, enter a new name for the new profile, and let's just call this def underscore profile. Def is going to be the development enterprise. And an enterprise has a file system and a database connection. So the file system is the first here. And we do have a file system set up on this machine. So I have created a folder called Siebel FS, and I should have shared that folder. Let's check. Yes, that's the share, network share. So a UNC share, of course, that's reachable from all your machines. That's required here. And UNC, also the hover tips are very helpful here. The location must be specified in UNC formats. And of course, cross-platform Linux, Windows, you must be able to mount that, etc. Then we have some authentication, which is the username to connect to the gateway. So this means this username, and probably you will be using admin like I am, and password. These credentials are going to be used for any component inside the enterprise to connect to the gateway and authenticate to the gateway. In the past demonstration, we have just set up the gateway security profile, which authenticates against the database. Okay, so that must be a valid user. Now click Next, and we have us the database connection, which is Oracle. We can keep this. There's the connect string. So we use the free PDB1 here. That's our database TNS entry. So if you're wondering what this is, if you go to your TNS names Aura, it's this. It's the alias of an entry in the TNS names. And our TNS names are located in a folder, which is also available as a system variable value for the system variable TNS underscore admin. Now that's not required for Siebel, but TNS underscore admin makes it much easier to work with Oracle related clients. Okay, so let's go back to Oracle here. The database user account, that's to connect the Siebel enterprise components, as it says in the tooltip, to the database. So it must be a valid database user account. Admin, of course, is suitable here. Double check the passwords. And then there's the table owner. That's Siebel in our case. So we have the database information. Let's click Next. And in those profiles, by the way, you can see there's a kind of blue and gray bar, which is representing these pages as well. So you can use these as well. And we set the security profile. Well, there's only one called Gateway. The primary language is English. That's fine. And we are on the last page, the encryption type. CSNAPI without encryption is our choice. Now, I'm spilling a little bit of a secret here. Allow me to sidestep and press F12 to open the DevTools. And in the DevTools, let me go to Network and focus on the fetches or XHR. The connections that are made to the server from this client. So the SMC is a browser web-based client, but it constantly makes REST requests to the Cloud Gateway API. So you might be wondering, can't I do all this in an automated fashion? It's 2026 after all, and do I still have to type this in as if it were like 1995? What is the REST request to create an enterprise profile like this? Well, if you're early enough to open the network tab in your browser DevTools before you click submit, then you get the answer. So here we have, this is the first one. This is the post request. The post request that was made to the Cloud Gateway REST API. And there's the payload. So you can see that's a JSON payload with all your settings. So if you can reenact this in any way, then you have your automation, right? So you can also right click and copy that as, for example, curl. Why not? Well, let's see how it looks like. I know I'm severely sidestepping here, but I just find this fascinating. So here's the curl request. Of course, needs a little bit of work, but you get the general idea. So there's the data. That's funny formatting, but will probably work on Windows, or you can do the PowerShell, or you can do the JavaScript. You get, you know the drill. It's a post request with a payload and authentication, of course. Did they misspell edge here? Well, I don't even want to know. Okay, so again, I'll point at you here, and here's your automation. So what we have done now, we have saved an enterprise profile, and now we can use this profile to go back to the Siebel deployment page. Let's zoom in a little bit. Plus, click plus and select enterprise. And then you select your profile. Of course, we select ours. You can choose staging or deploy. We deploy immediately. Staging will be just save that and stage later, deploy later. Specify the name for the Siebel Enterprise, alphabetic, numeric, and underscore character, limited to 12 characters, special characters. Yeah, so make sure to have a short name. Def is good. And that's your Def Enterprise description. And that's all we need. We need a profile, a name, deployer staging, and let's hit submit. It goes to a status according to the legend. That's deployment in progress. These status buttons have confused Siebel administrators ever since IP17 came out. Green ball means deployed, not running or waiting or whatever. So if it goes half green, that's okay. If you click refresh, it stays half green. It's working. It's doing its thing. There's also, you can click on that. There's a log file later you can download. And if it goes to all green, that's good. If it goes to staged, that's also good because you choose it. Deployment failed is bad, right? But let's hope for the best. So just be patient, keep refreshing every now and then. An enterprise deployment, it takes up to 1 minute or maybe even longer, depending, of course, on the underlying infrastructure very much. Okay, so again, remember there's a legend you can open, and there's no runtime information. It's just deploy time information here. There's also no Siebel servers yet, so nothing is really running in a sense, except the zookeeper is probably super busy right now. And well, it goes to green, successfully deployed. So what has happened in the background, of course, there's lots of information being written to zookeeper. And also there should be, if you look up the file system, if it's a fresh file system, it will have new folders. Yes, that initial set of folders is created by this process, deploying the enterprise. So that also proves it can connect to the file system. There would be lots of errors if it couldn't. and there's a log file which, yeah, you can keep for the record, and it tells you a lot about what happens in the background. And well, there was quite a lot to do. That's why it took a little while. Okay, so having the enterprise ready to hold one or more Siebel servers, we go to Profiles and we create us a Siebel server profile. Now there's a sample profile. Again, we clone that typically, and let's call this just, well, lack of imagination, let's just call it server 01 profile. And it needs a username to connect to the gateway, remember that, and an anonymous user handle. That's for, actually it tells us here, that's used for anonymous connections for RESTful requests. These users are usually customers. Do not grant this account administrator privileges. So this must be a database account, which is the anonymous for REST requests. And in the token, which is the password, fancy name for password, provide the password for the anonymous RESTful request. This password is stored encrypted in the named subsystem Java container prop subsys, which I might be mistaken, but I think is already obsolete. But it's required, so we have to fill it in, because the RESTful connections are actually different these days. Okay, but we have our anonymous user handle and user token. And now comes the million-dollar question for people who have never done this. Which component groups do I enable? Specify the component groups to enable in the Siebel server. This is the initial set. When the Siebel server starts up, it will run the components for these groups. So repeat that. If the Siebel server starts up, which it does during deployment, it will run all the components for these groups. So if you check all the groups, your Siebel server will never start successfully. It's just too much. There are hundreds and hundreds of components. So choose wisely and know that you can later always enable component groups, the traditional Siebel way. So it's just an initial setting. So we go with a modest selection here, EAI, because REST and stuff, the EAI object managers in there. Siebel Call Center I like to use as a demo application, and Siebel Web Tools. That's already enough. Choose not more than 3 as a rule of thumb. You can always go in later and configure your server, but not here. This profile will be read-only once you start using it. Okay, so we can click Next. Well, there's 2 ports. There's the connection broker port, which must be free. The default port is no longer 2321, so yeah, but this is definitely a free port, and that's the synchronization manager port, which is for the Siebel remote synchronization manager. So you might never be using that, but there might be situations in Siebel migration where this becomes important. Okay, submit. And well, there's actually a second page I omitted because I never change any settings there, which is okay if you're on Oracle, but if you are on any other database, you must select your database information. This will actually create an ODBC driver. Once this first Siebel server is deployed on the machine, it will create an ODBC connection on the machine. All right, so we have submitted, we have saved the profile, and now we can go to Siebel deployment and choose plus. You notice enterprise gray, we already have that. A Siebel server will not go gray, so you can deploy multiple Siebel servers. And for the Siebel server, you must have the Siebel enterprise component installation. You must have that internal Tomcat buzzing, the key store and trust store situation all resolved, and now you can enter that host name. In my case, it's the same machine and that internal Tomcat port. Choose the profile, choose deploy, And now the Siebel server name as it will appear in the administration, server 01, and the description, well, let's just call it server 01. Then deployed languages. You can only check boxes here where you have actually installed the language packs, or you will install the language packs later, but you must ensure that once everything comes together, you must follow several steps for additional language packs. So ENU is fine right now, and later we can, but if you want the components in different languages to be deployed already, you can choose that, but they will not work unless you deploy the language packs correctly, which is another demonstration. So I choose the 3 languages I choose at the initial installation time and click submit, and that will kick off a lot of processing on this machine. So let's just refresh once. We see it doesn't go red immediately, so the machine accepted the task. Here's the server 01. Can also expand that here. And it might be interesting to watch the task manager, what's going on. So you can see that there's a server config exe on the machine which you targeted. And that's gone now, but Zookeeper, there it is again. So this one freaks out Zookeeper a lot. So it writes a lot to Zookeeper. So you can see OM defs, object manager definitions, are loaded into Zookeeper right now. And once this work is done, takes a few minutes, it will launch the Siebel server. And remember, the choices you made for the component groups will influence how many processes will start and freak out the database because they will read the runtime repository. So that process can take anywhere between 5 and 25 or 30 minutes. You have to be patient, monitor the situation, and we will do the same, but we'll pause the video recording right now and come back once the Siebel server is up and running. Okay, and well, here we are with a green server. Again, that means it's been successfully deployed. We don't know if it's running. If you want to know if it's running, you can go to Management, and you see your enterprise, and you can expand this on top here. You have to hover, and you see your servers. And it's indeed running. Good sign, very good sign, very good start. And you can see the components on this server. They are the components defined in the component groups, which are you have selected in your profile. So if we go back to that profile, it's now read only. So the big question is, how do I change component assignment? You do that in configuration. So you go to your servers, you find your component groups, you assign it to the servers, the usual traditional way, which you should know if you watch that video. So that profile is really just the initial setting. And yeah, a glimpse into Task Manager, sorting by memory, shows that lots of Siebel components are running on this machine. So that Siebel server really came up really nice and easy. And we have the first Siebel server. So now we have components up and running, and that is the prerequisite to be able to edit the application interface profile, because the next thing you want is log into Siebel Call Center or Web Tools, but you need an application interface profile. So that's the last minimum profile you need to get a Siebel environment where you can really log in. So we are almost on the last leg here. So again, there's profiles, 2 profiles actually. One is smaller, that's the industry sample. One is bigger, that's the basic. You can clone either of them. So let's clone the industry profile and name it AI1 profile. That's like indicating it's for your first AI. You might have later, like you have multiple Siebel servers, you might have multiple AIs. And let's make this HTTP 1.1 compliant and go through the tabs. So this authentication tab is really, it's the defaults. It should be labeled defaults because these are the default settings for session timeout, the warning that's displayed 60 seconds before the session times out, and these methods, etc. But these are defaults, so you can accept them and they will be used as the defaults for the applications in the second tab. The only thing you have to change here really when you copy that is the password for guest CST, and then you have REST inbound authentication for your REST calls. If you are fine with these settings, just change the password. And the REST inbound defaults, that's your REST connection. So it has already selected the EAI object manager. For some reason, I'm not sure if I clicked it, but HTIM, the high-tech manufacturing group, was also on this server. I don't know how that works, but you have to select, if it's not selected, the correct EAI object manager to handle REST requests, and make sure you have a meaningful response URL. So that means the first part here should reflect your current situation or your reverse proxy. That is how the outer world sees the Siebel REST. So if you're unsure about this, take the Siebel REST Mega Pack video training on siebelhub.com. So it's all about the object managers really being correctly mapped and the passwords being correct. I can click next on this, and here we have lots of applications from the clone. So what I usually do is I delete most of them except the ones I want to keep carefully. Call center is a match, I want to keep that. And there's EAI ENU, which is the SOAP interface. Web Tools is there. That's good enough for a start. You can later expand this. Unlike the server profile, an application interface profile does never go read-only. You use it to configure the AI. So you can always expand on that. Okay, so we are left with 3 applications. And you expand them, enter the basic information. So here you can see there's an object manager missing. So that will be the call center object manager, of course. And that list is really what's running on the enterprise right now. So you have to have a Siebel server running. If you use the Cloud Gateway REST API, you don't have that necessity. And here in Enhanced Authentication, you see there's the same values like in the default settings on the first page. And so you can override them here. So I'll override the timeout to 10 times more. That's all I do. If you keep anything empty here, it will actually be fetched from the first page, from the default settings. So anything not required, you can actually keep empty, but these timeouts are actually required, so they can never be defaulted from the first page. So now we do the same for EAI. Make sure we have the EAI object manager. You can see the language pack really came through. Make sure we have the correct one. I badly want the English one. Where is it? There it is. And again, here in we can keep this. It's an EAI, and there's Web Tools. So make sure we have the Siebel Web Tools Object Manager behind that. It's a development environment. And we have a long session timeout. I'll keep the rest. So again, there are 2 more pages. Let's go through them. You don't need to fill in anything here. And here, well, if you want to check that statistics gathering thing, you feel free to do it. So once you submit without errors, it's a fine profile. And now we can deploy that profile on the deployment page using plus. Notice how you can do more Siebel servers. So you can do also 1 or more application interfaces. And the application interface is deployed not on the internal Tomcat, but on the external Tomcat, which in my case has this port number 443. You choose your profile, deploy, and you give it a name and description. Okay, once you submit this, should go to green fairly quick. Yes, you can see it here. And so now we can use the first part of the URL, including Siebel, the so-called context. And we can do /app/app name call center /variant or language. Remember call center ENU, that was one of the applications. There's an object manager running, which is now connected up. It has an anonymous session. It presents us the login page. And of course, we want to log in really bad and see, does it all come together? Do we have a touchdown, basically, in our fast-forward, fast-paced first enterprise, or initial enterprise, as I would call it. Because now you, of course, you parameterize it, you add more Siebel servers, etc. So it comes up nicely with the Aurora side menu theme, which is the default theme. So it's a vanilla Siebel enterprise. It's all vanilla settings. And the first thing I do, because it's 2512, is take the tab navigation control and take the Redwood, because tab Redwood is the way to go in 2026. It's the most modern theme with the most traditional navigation. And after logging out and logging back in, we should see the modern Siebel Redwood tab theme. And here we go. So that definitely is a Redwood tab. So you can click a few like that just to see if the database is responding nicely. Yeah, we have a few products here. So vanilla products, some seed data is in that almost empty database. You will not see any accounts or so. You have to import them, etc. You know the drill. But we are very good here. We have successfully installed a modern Siebel CRM version on Windows, and the database is 23AI, go figure. And it's a free 23AI version. And I repeat myself, the database is running as a container on Podman for Windows, using the Windows Linux subsystem. And that really proves that you can host not only one, but maybe two databases here. You can easily switch. Or in later demonstrations, if you keep watching, we're going to build that out, stay on the same machine, and deploy Siebel, deploy another Siebel enterprise using containers. Why not? Because we now have Podman. So yeah, nothing is stopping us now. Only maybe the disk size, which we can always increase if we want. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the demonstration so far. This concludes the basic steps for getting Siebel up and running on Windows in a modern Siebel version. And the next demos are going to be diving into fun parts where we install stuff and make things a little bit more complicated. So thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you on the other side.